With dreaming the scene and then typing the scene and then the scene manifesting in reality, does that make you drunk with power?
It does. I feel drunk with power every day with you guys.
The Backstreet Boys, I was dead.
So good.
You were great, Aidan, in the homicidal rage.
Oh,
when
so good.
What's it called?
Thanks,
The
bro.
time psychosis.
And all I can remember about this scene is the bloody dog would not play ball, and we were having to do it over and over and over again. I was like, get rid of that frickin' dog.
And then when you laugh, you go,
I just remember having a really fun time.
Hello and welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table. I'm Steve Blackman. I'm the showrunner of the Umbrella Academy, and I want to introduce my amazing cast, starting with Ellen Page, who plays Vanya, Aidan Gallagher, who plays Five, Robert Sheehan, who plays Klaus,
Bonsoir.
Tom Hopper, who plays Luther,
Good evening.
David Castañeda, who plays Diego, Emmy Raver-Lampman, who plays Allison, and the lovely Justin Min, who plays Ben. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks, Uncle Steve.
Hello.
thanks for having us, Steve.
By the way, missing all your lovely faces. Just let me put that out there to start.
Surely you're not sick of them by this point, Steve. You've been editing us for months.
I cannot be sick of those faces ever. And I have been editing you for months.
Loser! Diego!
Skip, you're right. What the hell did we do now?
I suppose not dying in the apocalypse is their biggest challenge going into season 2, right? That's kind of where we left them at the end of season 1, was attempting to make their escape from a doomed world. A doomed present. God, this is a tough crowd. Jesus Christ.
You want more specifics? Like where that's a summation of everybody, but not emotionally. Maybe that's what we want to do, or
Yeah, as far as where Luther's at, I think Luther, he's gone through a lot this in their first season. He's discovered a lot about, obviously, about old Reginald Hargreaves, his dad, and what his position has been through all these years of growing up in the Umbrella Academy. And it seems that since the accident, it's sort of all been for nothing. I suppose he felt like he had something to prove, and like he needs to be the leader and he has to step up. And I think he's made a few mistakes in doing that. I think some of the decisions he made were a bit potentially like power hungry at times, and he made a few bad decisions. So I think he's dealing with a lot of guilt, actually, and he's still dealing with realizing those kind of truths about his dad. And he's got some, as we know, Luther has some serious daddy issues. In season 2, he's going to have to discover what he is outside of the Umbrella Academy.
I will piggyback on that, Tom, on daddy issues. Trying to, obviously, Patch died, and, he's trying to find some type of identity by his own in terms of Diego. And then realizing that the Umbrella Academy coming together makes much more sense. They just happen to be a lot stronger. And then in the second season, I think it's just more about trying to understand Dad. Maybe Dad brought us all together to stop something similar to JFK's death. And so I think that's probably what Diego's trying to figure out, is to, like, if he can stop JFK from dying, maybe he can come closer to understanding his father.
At the end of season 1, the world is ending and Allison has no voice. And she's, recently divorced. She is, on the precipice of losing her daughter within her marriage, but also with the impending apocalypse. It's pretty quick for her that, she lands immediately into a segregated South, and she is a Black woman in a city that she doesn't live in, has never probably been to, and doesn't know anybody, and kind of having to deal with the immediate fears and reality of her new location and the color of her skin.
Do you know what's nice, Emmy? You left the present with no voice, Alison, to arrive in 63. to have sort of no voice in a very different, in a kind of a social way. I never thought of it like that.
Are we already on to number 5 yet? Are we ready for number 5?
I would say that 5 doesn't really know who he is. He's never had that time to develop that. He's just gone through trauma after trauma, being rushed to event. And now season 2 is a continuation of that week-long journey to save the world and his family. His biggest challenge with that is that the stakes are a lot higher with it going back to the 60s, and there's so much more that can go wrong with the timeline that it really stresses out 5. In combination with him, developing a further relationship with his siblings, and that bringing out his humanity. There are all these different things, but he still has to stay on task if he wants to save his family.
Number 6, Justin.
Ben at the end of season 1 is dead.
And that is all.
I wasn't playing it like that.
And at the start of season 2, he's still dead. And he's with Klaus, as always. And they're up to even crazier shenanigans this season.
Yeah.
Klaus's powers evolve.
Yeah.
So we get to have a little more fun with that.
Moving on, number 7.
We end the first season with Vanya. She blows up the moon. So that's where we've last seen Vanya. And obviously her emotional state has obviously, as we learned throughout the season in terms of the difficulties in her childhood and being so isolated and the degree of trauma that she's repressed so greatly. And then throughout the season, we see her getting more and more and more in touch with that. And then, of course, have this massive release at the end. And where we find her at the beginning of the second season is actually she doesn't remember any of it, between the head trauma, the gunshot, and all of that energy coming out, and in many ways. So dramatic, right? And she's very, she's now this person who is actually much more open and confident and emotional, more in touch with her emotional self. And then she begins a whole other journey of growth in the second season.
Everything in our new lives is connected to the plot to assassinate the president. That can't be a coincidence.
None of us are supposed to be here, right? We know something changes the timeline. We have to make it right again. Before everyone and everything we know is dead.
Who remembers the first scene we did? Was it Ellen? Did you do the first scene of this season?
It was me and Chestnut.
Oh, that's right, Emmy.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like being first day back, first scene?
I think the first day back, I think so much of the first season was about the 7 of us kind of figuring out the family dynamic and making sure that was really believable, and that, this wasn't just 7 strangers that just met for the first time 2 weeks before that. And so I think that took up a lot of space in my head personally in the first season, of just making sure that the relationships and the dynamics rang real and true. And I think the second season, I think I was instantly thrown into another relationship that had to be believable, now having a husband and having, we kind of pick up with Allison in the second season. She's 2 years into this new life. And with a husband. And so it was like a whole new, relationship that I kind of had to kind of grapple with and understand really quickly, and then try to also make seem real and authentic, and the chemistry believable. And, and just also grappling with her new surroundings and this new, life that and the new rules especially of her life, and like where she can and can't go, and what she can and can't do, and where she can and can't eat, and where she can and can't walk or drive or shop. It was jarring in some ways, but very educational in others, and a really, really, really emotional. I remember, I was really, really emotional starting the season, because it did feel like an honor, but also a challenge to kind of take on this time period as a Black woman.
Emmy, is that background CGI or is that real?
No, it's wallpaper.
Oh, I was on
my
the fence.
wallpaper. Yeah.
I don't know. My first scene was in the blistering heat. I think we were up in Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
We were shooting the bit where we break down in the car, myself and dear old darling Ben. I wanted to try to make Klaus's give him that 3-year imprint, because Klaus has been there since 1960. So give him that. And also has been existing at the middle of this hub, surrounded by thousands of sort of adoring people with an ego that's inflated, to the size of a shed. And so I wanted to try to give him some of that experience. And for the first few months, I felt disappointed that I didn't give him enough, bells and whistles of the period to change him, to make him feel as changed as possible. But then when I watched it, I went, oh no, I did do that work.
You
nice
did.
One. I am good.
Who else wants to share their first scene experience?
I think my first scene experience was with Jack Ruby in the car, and it was one of the first days that I put on one of the new suits. They got these new suits this year, but they hadn't lined the suits yet, so it was like a rubber lining. And I remember this thing constricting me for the whole scene. And I was gonna pass out because this thing was constricting my entire body. So I'm in this scene, and all I can remember about this scene is the bloody dog would not play ball, and we were having to do it over and over and over again. I was like, get rid of that frickin' dog.
I was going to say, with the rubber suit, you weren't in the blistering sun, because we started a very, very hot period in Toronto, didn't we?
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
That first scene of mine where we were rolling around on the asphalt, and it was like we could fry an egg on that road. Do you remember, Justin? Crikey.
Yeah, and Justin was wearing that hoodie. I can only imagine.
Leather jacket and hoodie.
It was the perfect outfit for that.
Aidan, what was your first scene?
Oh, it was with David. We were in the asylum together. Was that your first day as well? Because I know you were shooting the fight scene during that as well.
That was my first day actually with you.
I see.
It was
that was a
wonderful,
very fun scene to play alongside a slightly crazed Diego. And just Five's counterpoint to that I thought was very fun. I mean, the fun thing about going into a second season is that we've all sort of been estranged from each other. We haven't really spent a lot of time with each other. So that dynamic that you see of us really coming together more as a family in season 2 is reflective of how we all feel, because we now have history. There's a lot more understanding between us all. So a second season, it definitely felt even more like a family.
My first was, I believe, the scene with Sissy and Harlan, the first time we see Vanya back. And yeah, I remember feeling I think what was fun this season was Vanya really did feel like a different character. Last season I started in she was just so sad and anxious and so closed in on herself, and it felt really enjoyable and fun to map out in many ways this person who was feeling like a very different character in a lot of ways, the same core issues in many ways. But so yeah, that was the first day, and working with different littler Justin, who plays Harlan, and Marin Ireland, who's fantastic, who plays Sissy. So yeah, that was my first scene, first day.
Who are those guys? They're not here to sell vacuums.
The commission will hunt us down wherever and whenever we go.
The great thing about all these actors, this group is so amazing, is that, we can write all we want to do, but these guys embody the characters. And I think it's fair to say they know their characters better than we do. We write dialogue, we write scenes, but what these guys bring to it is what makes them three-dimensional. So, from a writer's point of view, I was able to have meetings with everybody early in the season to sort of tell them what I wanted to do in season 2 and sort of hear their thoughts. And I think from there, it's sort of just a sort of a collaborative growth experience where we sort of try things out. We do rehearsals, we do things. Not a lot of shows often do. I don't mean rehearsals for the scenes. Sometimes we rehearse on weekends or nights. And then, they bring the magic on the day with the directors and the DPs to sort of figure out what works. So it's just, that's why these guys are so great. Anyways, that's my lead-in. Hand off to you guys.
I remember that first meeting with you where you pitched the entirety of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like walking past the writer's room where you guys had all the episodes laid out. And I remember some of the writers asking like what they thought Five and his relationship with Hargreaves might have been like, because those two don't really have a lot of time together. And they've certainly gone down different paths.
Jump in. I sort of... I like second season Klaus. He feels a bit older. He basically feels like off drugs, He's gone off drugs and he's sort of slowed down. But I suppose the challenge with season 2 was to put something else in there for him to flee from. Sobriety was the thing he was running away from in the first season. I wanted him to feel kind of slower, a bit more sorrowful, because the core dilemma still exists and there's nothing really to anesthetize it, because he can't deal with the praise, the kind of cultish praise has just become strangulating. So he's kind of perpetually in flight. But I wanted him to feel kind of older as a result of finally being off drugs, because I think kind of a lot of the joys of drug addiction, one of them is that it just arrests any personal development, he kind of grew up a bit. He kind of matured a bit for the second season. And also his costume choices got a little bit more conservative.
I need a spotter.
What is that, like a wingman?
You don't know anything about
I know everything. You are an open book written for very dumb children.
Steve always says, Steve, you've already said it's like the music should feel like another character in the show, right? Like it kind of really influences the mood of the show. What I love to do when I'm reading the scripts and it tells me the song, what the song is going to be playing, I love to put that song on and then read the script with it in the background. So that it gives me that kind of atmosphere of what it's going to feel like. And it really does, it really informs the mood of the scene. And I think this show does that so well. The choices of music are brilliant. And the Backstreet Boys is just one example.
Oh my God, the Backstreet Boys! I was dead.
So good.
Because Emmy, when you did that fight, obviously the music's not playing in the background. You're just doing the fight. But I always imagined when I was watching you do that, I knew we were going to have that song playing in the background.
I had to rewatch it 4 times because I just
so
couldn't.
Good. It's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
There's so many this season that I'm like, oh, this song every time. Yeah, it's great.
And sometimes I write a scene before I know what the scene is. I'm flipping through music, and I hear a song. I go, okay, I know how to write this fight scene. I know how to write this emotional scene. So sometimes it's not that I add the music afterwards. I hear the music first, I feel something, and then I write the scene.
Steve, in the first season, I remember did you not have a dream or something? You had a dream about the dancing in the moonlight scene, about me and Emmy doing it, because I remember you coming and telling us about it.
Yeah,
and
it
you
was
were
never
I had
in
a
the
dream
script.
last night.
Yeah, it was never in any of the early drafts, and then I had a dream about your two characters dancing, and I imagined hundreds of lights over you guys dancing. Then I woke up and went, psh. Wow. And then our crew amazingly built those rigs with 1,000 lights, and you guys were amazing because I know you guys just had a night to do. You had to learn the dance, and then you had to do it. I mean, it was so quick, right?
Yeah. It was freezing. It was 3 a.m, but it turned out so good. So good.
That was so fun. That was one of the most fun scenes.
It's one of my favorite scenes from season
You nailed it, babe. You nailed it.
But the music is a character,
With dreaming the scene and then typing the scene and then the scene manifesting in reality, does that make you drunk with power?
It does. I feel drunk with power every day with you guys. By the way, it's really about you guys. The stuff to stop talking about me. Talk about music and you guys.
I always just, whenever Steve writes an incredibly chaotic scene where Five is just out of his mind with intensity, I'll always just go back to the Black Parade. So on the drive over, I'm looking at the scene and figuring out just the arc, and I have this intensity of guitars just raining down upon me. so that by the time I get to hair and makeup, I'm just sort of come off of that.
Oh, that's what's wrong with you. I've always just thought you were a little bit ticky in the morning. Like, Aidan's intense in the morning.
You were great, Aidan, in the homicidal rage.
Oh,
and
so good.
What's it called?
Thanks,
the
Rob.
time psychosis.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to play. I remember like doing all these weird contortions and stuff, and like sprinting into the mark just to sort of get that jitteriness.
I just created a playlist from like 1960 to 1965 for myself that, you know, if I had like a spare moment or in hair and makeup or, you know, in my trailer or just sometimes at home or if I went on walks, because, you know, music is such a big part of the show, but also like the music of the 60s is like so specific and and iconic. And so, yeah, I just had like a playlist that had like, you know, 1,000 songs on it. And so I feel like I barely ever got through the whole thing.
Was there
like,
anything
to every song on it.
that ended up in the show that was on your playlist?
The song that was supposed to be for the dance that ended up being different.
Oh.
And I'm gonna leave you.
Oh, yeah.
Always gonna love you. Tell it right now. Yeah. Yeah, that was on there. But then I don't know. Then we had like, you know, Backstreet Boy needle drops. So it's such a melting pot of music, but it's all perfect for the show and for the scenes. So
I just remember having a really fun time. You know, I thought it was actually a really special, sweet scene. And again, like Vanya to really be spending time with her two siblings, you know, for the first time ever, was really, really felt quite touching and meaningful. And I think too, when you're getting ready for a scene like that, which is grounded in our conversation, and then, you know, you add all those elements, you sometimes have moments of how is this going to work out? How is this going to feel? And it really felt just organic and free. And then when I watched it in the show, I just really felt that it worked and was really special to watch, like the three of them bonding in that way.
Because we actually had rehearsed like a proper dance number, and then I think when we got into the salon and on set and kind of put all the other elements together, like doing like a choreographed dance just didn't feel right for the moment that they were in. Just so we all just were like having fun and be like, grab hands and swing in a circle, and then, you know, they put the camera on this rig that it was like sitting on top of this like dolly that had like curlers in it. And then we just like were like throwing that around to each other. It just was like a really fun improvised moment that like we went into it with a very like structured dance, and then it kind of turned into this very like free, in the moment kind of silly. Because also, you know, they're also under the influence and tipsy, and so it was nice for it to just be silly and loose and like authentic, which I felt was really, and it played really, really well. I thought it was so great.
But my favorite moment of all of that is when you're under the big hair heaters.
The hair dryers.
When you guys lift those.
Right.
I laugh every time. I've seen it 100 times. I laugh every time I see that. Though one of my favorite scenes of the season, I'm sorry we're going way up here, is you guys in the elevator. Post farts is lovely. It's quintessential scene from season 2.
And also, like David properly is pissing himself in that shot.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't think we got one shot where David didn't piss himself. It was amazing.
Because it was David, wasn't it? What did I say? And we never got you back.
Because you would just be like, you kind of, in all the takes, you would just kind of lean in and be like, oh my God. And you do this every time. Yeah. And I just couldn't stop. I was like okay, let's just record it like
that whole sequence is one of my favorites.
Klaus, it's Ben here.
No, unfortunately, ghosts can't time travel.
Are you kidding me?
I just have to start off by saying I enjoy watching my siblings all the time. And actually, in character as we speak, they're hilarious. What would you say? I think he would say, stop being dumb and and get your act together. and that, you know, when the family is together, I think that's when they're strongest. So I think he would say that, and you know, with the evolution of Klaus's powers this season, he does get to do that to a certain extent, with being able to possess Klaus. Those scenes were a lot of fun to shoot, and finally got his moment with Diego and with Vanya, of course. Actually, Robert was being incredibly annoying all season and just mimicking me every chance he got. So, you know, we would be having a conversation, and then suddenly he'd just start repeating my words and my mannerisms, and it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. But I also did
intentionally annoying.
I also did record some videos for him so that he could.
I didn't know that. Really, that's great.
Yeah,
we work hard, Steve. We work.
You
hard.
do.
We work hard.
This is on the telly. You have to do some work.
Oh,
this
that
goes
was
out.
nice.
Yeah.
The saddest thing about the Ben character, from my opinion, is he's so tortured because he's the most insightful character of all of them. He's such a philosopher, and you know, yet he has the worst translator, who's Klaus. So all these amazing things are going on in Ben's mind, but he can't, and no one can hear him. The person he has to tell things through is Klaus, the guy who's the least likely to tell the message properly or to be able to insightfully push that through.
Yeah. It's kind of locked in. He's sort of cooped up, you know?
He is. He's tortured character.
Yeah.
That the scene in the white room with you, Justin, and Ellen was so good. So good. So good.
A lot of tears are coming from that scene, guys. I'm telling you, people are going to be crying at home.
It's great to finally speak to a different.
There it is.
Oh, cheers, man. Yeah, thanks.
I love you, Robert, but it was great to speak to Ellen for once.
Also, the fact that they painted, that was actually the living room that they completely covered up and painted white, and then had to undo it for us to continue to shoot back in it later.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
crazy.
I loved the whole brains acid sequence as well.
Yes.
Ellen.
So good.
Yeah, I
so
loved
good.
all that.
I love how the eyeballs just worked so well, and how you put, instead of like at first I think the whole room was going to turn, and just having the clock do that was like almost even more like a way. Cool.
Initially, the VFX gave me a sample of that, and they had like what you always see is all the wavy things. I said, no, I just want the clock to be an eye that just keeps blinking at Vanya, because it's just so scary and creepy. And how about that song, the Butthole Surfers, for that song? That is a great. I'm proud of that one. That was a good one.
Wait, David, how did you like your wig?
Yeah, I had it. I had my hair long, ready to shoot it with that long hair, but we had to cut it. So then I had to wear a glued up wig.
Oh, because they had to shoot your season 1's like hair.
Yeah. But it was all right. I mean, I think the heat made it a little bit uncomfortable at first, but eventually you just kind of get used to it. The one that I didn't like was the full beard. When they had to stick me the full beard, this was the very, because then they had to do this thing right here on top. So talking in itself was just hard. So you kind of really, and I'm already mumbling as I do already. So I'm just like having to enunciate even more now.
Yeah, I did a movie once it was an 8-week shoot, and I had the fake beard glued on all around the mouth. And you can't move your mouth. You can't open your mouth past a certain. So it completely informed how the character talked. You know, it just sort of talked very much like that, just sort of through the teeth, because you couldn't open your mouth.
And then when you laugh, you go
Alright, quick rundown. Luther, super strength. Klaus can commune with the dead. Allison can rumor anyone to do anything.
Except she never uses it.
I heard a rumor. You punched yourself in the face.
You know, Klaus goes back in the 60s, and then he through, I suppose, the charm offensive and being a bit manipulative, surrounds himself with kind of adoring, you know, praising followers. So, you know, he doesn't have that. I wouldn't say he has the hardest deal of it when he goes back in time, because I suppose he takes advantage of lots of people, and they look after him. And
But I would say Allison has the toughest time. I mean, she's married and has to. I mean, I'll let Emmy you speak to it, but like, isn't the fact that you're in you love someone else, you're in a marriage, and you can't really be completely open about who you are? I mean, isn't that the most challenging part of that character? I mean,
yeah, I think grappling with this new structure of her life of, she came from a place where she was like loved and adored and celebrated and had, these powers, and she was a very like public facing figure for the Umbrella Academy, but also for her career. And then she like plops into the 60s where she's hunted because of the color of her skin and hated because of the color of her skin. And, she just was instantly confronted with those harsh, brutal realities. And then I think on top of the fact that she still can't speak, and then being in a new relationship with Chestnut, who's played by the amazing Yusuf. And so I think her realities are very harsh and very real, and to be completely honest, like life or death. They are in very, they're in Texas, and so I think her world has been completely flipped upside down, not only because she's stuck in a time zone that's not her own, but she's also stuck in a time zone where just her pure existence is dangerous for her in a way.
Yeah.
It's interesting how Klaus and Allison went from sort of global superstardom, celebrity, back to this place where no voice and restricted liberty, everything. And Klaus, it was a bit of a role reversal. I just realised, where Klaus was basically scoring whatever pills on the street, and then is sort of thrust into this cult and stardom and all that stuff.
I do think I think that is the one thing that I do think Allison does like about this new life for her, is that I do think her fame and her powers by the end of season 1 had become such a burden for her. And I think was kind of, she didn't appreciate her powers, and they weren't helpful for her, and she misused them and she disrespected them. And I also think her fame, was or was not real. Her marriage was or was not real, I think. And so now kind of having to have her, she has to like scale it all the way back and kind of start fresh. And I think outside of all the political and racial turmoil that she is in, I think the inner battle that she's fighting within herself of like, maybe I do like this simpler, easier version of myself, and my personal life is easier this way, just not abusing my powers and not using them at all, and also not having to be in the public eye at all times.
And I think where Diego, his character, is going from this vigilante with these small little things to like saving Kennedy. I mean, he set his sights on the biggest thing he could set his sights on. Everyone's like life flipped upside down sort of by coming back to the 60s. I mean, nothing, 5 had his own issues, but I feel like the goal was to make everyone feel like their lives flipped completely.
Yeah. I mean, Ellen, you've got quite a storyline.
Yeah, I mean, Vanya's obviously having an interesting experience because she has, I guess, lost her memory. And then really is experiencing that, the challenges that, were referenced in terms of going back to a time like that. She witnesses through Sissy's experience, as a woman, in terms of having, very little independence or ability to control or make decisions for your life at all, in terms of her relationship to her husband and how that marriage dynamic works. And then needless to say, the experience of a queer woman in that time, back when it was, would have been illegal still, and, still considered a mental illness as it was till, like the early 70s. So, existing in a time like that, but also, it was beautiful to have Vanya fall in love so passionately and for the first time. So I mean, yeah. And then you remember when you're making it that it's still the reality for so many people, you know, the experience that Vanya and Sissy have, you know. So those things most certainly haven't changed, but obviously in the 60s there was many more layers to it. I think also it's amazing to have, you know, these new amazing people because they're just so fucking good. I mean, the performances are just.
I mean, Marin, come on. I mean, Marin brought so much to that character. A little Justin. But, you know.
I think it was also nice. It was also nice because honestly, for the first like 4 episodes, it kind of felt like we were all in our own separate movies. Like it was several episodes before we all started to interact with each other. So it was really nice. Yeah. So it was really nice to kind of have, you know, like fresh blood and fresh eyes and just, you know, just different dynamics for all of us to play off of. Especially because, you know, we spent the first 3 months of shooting like completely separate of each other almost.
And the first scene you were all together, what was it, Allison? Emmy, was when you guys all came into Elliot's.
To Elliot's with the ambrosia. There was a lot of disgusting dishes.
But it was great to see you guys all in the same room together the first time on set as well. Because, I mean, I'd seen you all together, but not in character in a room together. So I hope the audience loves the moment when you all hug each other, stand together. We put some big score behind it, but I think we didn't need that. I mean, it's just wonderful to see you guys all together.
I was personally honored when you left my ad lib with Diego when we were walking up the steps.
Yeah. I love that.
Because it was like I said hi to everybody else, and then I was like,
hey, Diego. Say hi? This has been Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the Umbrella Academy, out now.